little more on the Mike Tyson phenomenon. It's a phenomenon that annoys me because, to be honest, it annoys me because I'm an Evander Holyfield fan. So full disclosure on that. But it's really annoying that the guy that was the fourth best fighter of his era is now this cultural icon and is thought of by people that never even saw him fight as one of the greatest fighters of all time and the greatest fighter of his era. He gets a lot more credit than Lennox Lewis or Evander Holyfield or Riddick Bowe or anyone else from that era. He's like the guy in the minds of Gen Z people that never even saw any of the fights from that era. And it's understandable why he's an attractive figure because, for one, he was a puncher. And the puncher is always exciting because they're very entertaining in the way that they dispatch tomato cans, you know? Like when Lennox Lewis or Evander Holyfield would dispatch a tomato can, they would dismantle them over the course of 6 or 7 rounds. They'd probably eventually get them out of there. Occasionally, maybe they wouldn't even be able to get them out of there and it would go to a decision. Whereas Tyson, would knock out a tomato can in the first round. And so in the mind of an uneducated boxing fan, which, using that term loosely, it's not even boxing fans, it's just casual people that are aware of the heavyweight champion. Especially back then, the heavyweight champion was a big deal. Boxing was a big deal. This was before MMA and everything. So, they're impressed by this, They think that this is just amazing, that this guy is just knocking out all these tomato cans, It's the same reason why people were shocked when Ali beat Foreman. Because they just assumed that because Foreman could knock people out, that meant he was the best fighter. But it's kind of a pattern that repeats itself over history. Sonny Liston and George Foreman and Mike Tyson and Deontay Wilder. There's always this big puncher that will eventually run into a better boxer. And that's what happened to Mike Tyson. But they always have this aura about them, these punchers. And then you add on to the fact that Mike Tyson's just an entertaining guy because he's nuts. And he's got the IQ of a turnip. And so he just says like funny things, the spinal thing and everything. And he's got the lisp, and he's just completely mental, like threatening people in interviews and stuff. I mean, it's great fun. But for someone like me, who was a fan of Holyfield and didn't like Tyson, I don't like thugs. It's just really frustrating that this guy occupies this place in society now. And young people, like I said, who never saw the fights, they just know who's getting this cultural recognition. They really believe that Mike Tyson was the best fighter of his era. And then there's the Tyson simps that come up with all kinds of excuses why Tyson lost. The funniest one is that he was washed up when he fought Evander. Like, Evander could have never beaten him in his prime. Evander only won because Evander took advantage of the fact that Tyson was washed up. Well, they leave out the fact that Evander Holyfield is 4 years older than Tyson. 4 years older. When they fought, I believe Holyfield was 34 and Tyson was 30. So, and that's a period of time, particularly then. People are, I don't know if it's just better nutrition. I tend to think it's probably drugs, but I don't know. If people are drug tested thoroughly, then maybe it is just nutrition or better training or something. But recently, people are maintaining their prime like into their 30s now. But back then it was like you hit 30 and you fell off a cliff most of the time. And so for Holyfield to be 34 and Tyson to only be 30, it's Holyfield that was washed up at that point. To make the excuse that Tyson was washed up is just ludicrous. I mean, you're saying he lost to a guy because he was washed up, and the guy's 4 years older than him. It's just stupid. So, yeah, I mean, it basically just came down to, like, Teddy Atlas talks about this. It just came down to Tyson looked great against tomato cans, but when he actually when we actually got the measure of the man, he was lacking. And that's what's really incredible about Muhammad Ali, Um, I used to be resistant to the greatness of Muhammad Ali just because, young people are always resistant to their parents telling them that their guy is the greatest. But that victory of Muhammad Ali over George Foreman really was unbelievable. And just, the wars that the guy was in, and like as his skill diminished, like his intelligence and his heart just took over, and he would just like through sheer force of will, he'd still be winning these big time, historical fights. That's greatness, Tyson was the opposite of that. When it came time for him to have his historical fights, he crumbled. He wasn't good enough, and he wasn't mentally tough enough. I mean, he bit a guy's ear off to escape the fight. He's not one of the great fighters of all time. And so it's really annoying that like there's been this revisionist history, to make him a cultural icon and to basically imply that he was the guy when he was not. He absolutely was not.